This is George from High Tech Legion. A couple months ago we looked at the Swiftech H240-X and we ran through basically what had happened with Acetech being awarded a patent for pump on the block, closed loop cooling, self-contained cooling, and basically Acetech went back and basically sued everyone going back to the ancient Greeks for their viaducts for anyone who ever used water for anything. Resultantly, the Swiftech H220 was pulled off the market. At least in the US. It did sell around the rest of the world. Now, Swiftech, in response, did come back with the H220X, and if ever we saw a statement piece, the H220X was it. At the time, we had a really packed hierarchy up top with 240 millimeter closed-loop cooling, and the H220X actually really separated the hierarchy into two distinct groups, the H220X and everything else. It came in and just absolutely set this segment on its ear with performance that was absolutely unseen before. Now, for a follow-up, Swiftech's coming out with the H240X, which is essentially the same cooler, just with a larger radiator based off a 140 millimeter platform using two 140s, so a 280 millimeter radiator, or two 140s as the 240X name implies. And we're definitely expecting more of the same, and we're going to take a look at it here today. All right, getting our first look at the H240X, let's get some quick look at the box out of the way. Obviously, 240X pictured. You notice 4 colors are pictured. The CPU block, the Apogee XL, which is included, actually has changeable faceplates, so you can actually change colors on it. You've got white, red, green, and blue included. The white actually can be colored, as we'll see, to match anything you so desire. Two 140 millimeter fans, etc. Also on the front, you'll notice it's socket LGA 1150 series, so 1150, 55, 56, and 2011. Notice the star next to the 775 and 1366. It does need an additional mounting kit, which is available separately from Swiftech. AMD, you're going to have the AM2, AM3 platform, as well as FM1, FM2. Moving over to the side, we get our obligatory noise performance chart, which of course we're not going to pay attention to because we're going to do our own tests. And one note they do make over here is that the 280 millimeter radiator is going to offer really comfortable, quiet noise levels in terms of performance. That's going to be very important. And on the back, of course, you've got all of your specs. And really the big thing to look at here and keep in mind is you've got a total of 54 millimeters with the fans and the radiator. Make sure you've got room up top in your case for the H240X, for the two 140 millimeter fans, I should say, as well as that depth of 54 millimeters, I should say. All right, so let's get a look at the unit itself. The H240X is built exactly off the H220X platform. It is identical in every aspect except for the radiator. Once again, it is built off of Swiftech's QP radiators, but instead of the dual 120s, it is a dual 140. Now, one of the big things after we reviewed the H220X, I got a lot of questions, this or, as far as some type of CLC. So just real quick, I want to knock, that out right, very quickly, get started. Why this is better than a CLC in a nutshell. First off, it's expandable. Your CLC is not expandable. You want to put a GPU in the loop? Not a problem. Want to add a second radiator? Not a problem. And these are actually performance benefits you can make. And you might say, oh, well, my CLC, I'm going to spend $50 on Noctua fans, and you're not going to get a performance increase. You're going to quiet it down a little bit, but that's going to be about it. Here, you can actually spend that $50 on a second radiator and get a performance increase. You can add your GPU into it. Not a problem. Second thing about that open loop being, when your CLC dries up, you throw it away. Here, you've got a reservoir, fill port, your liquid gets a little low, starts drying up, you open up the fill port, you put a little distilled water in it, and you go about your business. Next thing, every single component included here is better than any CLC on the market by a long shot. First off, you're using Swiftech's flagship CPU block, the Apogee XL. This is a real, honest to goodness, discrete liquid cooling piece that is available separately. Also, it's about $70 by itself. You'll see the components within this package add up to over $200. This is pre-assembled and $149 retail. So you've got a much better CPU block here. All C110 copper, micropin construction. Beautiful CPU block. We tested it by itself, did a review on it, won a gold award, and it compared with the best CPU blocks on the market very, very favorably. Next, you've got the MCP 30 pump. Moves over 1 gallon a minute. Your CLC is moving maybe a third of that. Probably not even that. Independent tests have shown that most of the blocks actually move a quarter to a tenth of that. Now that's very, very important. You see a very, very drastic drop off in performance below half a gallon a minute. You're doubling that here. Also, pump has enough head pressure that when you're adding components, it's ready for it. You want to add a GPU and another radiator, like I say, not a problem. You're not going to do that with the CLC. We already went over the reservoir here and exactly what that's going to do for you as opposed to the CLC. Next, this is a copper brass radiator. It's a low FPI, 13 to 14 FPI. What that means is that is fins per inch. The denser the fins per inch, you are going to get more heat dissipation, but you're also going to have more restriction. You're going to need higher airflow fans to do it, and you're going to have a lot more noise. The 13 to 14 FPI is optimized for lower flow, so you're going to get less noise for similar cooling performance. Now also, like I say, this is copper and brass. Copper has approximately twice the heat dissipation capabilities, thermal conductivity of aluminum. That is what CLC radiators are made out of. So you need twice as much aluminum to get the same amount of heat dissipation you're going to get out of this copper brass radiator. So that's why you're seeing the higher FPI on the aluminum radiators and also not seeing as good heat dissipation. So there's your quick breakdown on why this thing performs so much better than the CLCs. I mean, you're going to see it in the numbers. The numbers don't lie. There's a huge performance disparity as far as top-end performance, as well as a huge disparity as far as noise performance. Now, let's get a closer look at each of the components individually. Let's start with the fans. Swiftech Helix fans come pre-mounted up top. They are mounted in a push configuration. We have tested both the H220X and the H240X in push and pull. And really, there's no noticeable difference as far as performance. So you can flip them around if you like, have them pull out of the case. Not a problem, as long as your case is well aspirated. I mean, that's going to be a huge determining factor whether you run them push or pull, and it's going to be a case-by-case basis. But they do come pre-mounted, 700 to 1800 RPM. Produce only 29 dBA at the top end each, and are capable of 90 CFM with 2.29 millimeters of static pressure. So you've got great static pressure to get the air moving through the radiator, as we said. Now, talking about the radiator, like I say, all copper brass construction, 13 to 14 FPI. It's built off of Swiftech's QP series radiator. Fabulous radiator, optimized for low noise. So really, you're getting, especially in the 280 millimeter radiator here, you've got some great passive cooling, which is going to allow you to run the fans lower, so you're going to get great performance with very, very low noise levels. Like I say, now moving down to the pump, like I say, this is a Swiftech MCP 30 capable of over a gallon a minute. Plenty of head pressure if you want to add GPU, if you want to add a second radiator, if you want to add both, not a problem. Beyond that, it's going to get a little sketchy. If you're going to do, 2 GPUs and a second radiator, I mean, you might want to look something like an MCP 50, but, if you're doing a small loop, I mean, this is a collection, like I say, of discrete cooling components, a very, very good small loop, and that's exactly what you're getting here, all pre-assembled. So, you've got a lot going for you right here. Tubing, Swiftech 3/8 by 5/8, PVC tubing, all black. You got enough length, even if you're using a full tower, obviously, without a problem. You've got all swivel barbs throughout, and they all are G1/4 inch fittings, except for the pump outlet right here. Now, there is an adapter for a G1/4 inch fitting if you decide you're going to change fittings. That is available from Swiftech, and it only comes in right about $5. So you're not looking at big expense if you do want to switch that fitting over. So not a problem if you can change the tubing or the fitting. All G1/4. Like I say, except for this piece, which of course you can leave this piece if you're using 3/8 inch tubing, or if you want to change it out to a different fitting. Like I say, just buy the adapter. So then moving down, like I say, this is Swiftech's flagship block. This is the Apogee XL. We, did review it individually. I definitely think you should take a look at that review. Micropin construction inside, like I say, all C110 copper, beautiful block with an LED light up, with the faceplate that we're going to see when it's installed, and changeable colors on the faceplate. And let's take a look at exactly how those colors change. Now the H240-X ships with the blue lighting in the Apogee XL. The lighting on the reservoir is not changeable. That is always going to be white. Now changing this out, very, very simple. There's 4 pins in here, and you just need to get your screwdriver, a small screwdriver underneath, pry it out, and it's just a little push pin. That's all it is. Pops right out. You can then take the plate off, which will also pop out. And inside is your color, which again, you can pull out. Easiest way to do it, tiny screwdriver, get into where the holes are, and just give it a pop. There we go. Pull it out. Take one of your other faceplates. That comes with it. Like I say, green, red, white are included. Really nice thing about the white, you can actually take a permanent marker and make it any color you like. So you can customize without a problem. Or even in India ink. And we'll use the white for the review. Pop it into place. And we'll put our faceplate back on. You can actually do this while it's mounted as well. Not a problem there, of course. And then just 4 pins push right back in. And that's all there is to changing the color. So, it's not as easy, obviously, as software, but it's also permanent and can be done any color you like. Getting a look at the accessory kit. First off, obviously, installation guide. Very well pictured, as you see. No words whatsoever. So easy enough to follow along with, though, with the pictures. It is a very simple installation. Moving on from there, the backplate for LGA 1150 series comes initially mounted right on the block itself. Take it off, simple plate, and of course underneath, we got the nice large copper surface area on the Apogee XL. Moving on, AMD mounting kit, LGA 2011 mounting kit, small tube of Tinmate 2, and finally, the PWM Splitter. An interesting thing about the 220X series and 240X series, I should say, they use a PWM splitter. The pump is set up to work in tandem with the fans, speed-wise, so that the pump is never audible over the fans. Now, we're going to see exactly how this sets up, but in a word, what it actually does, PWM plugs into the motherboard, SATA powers everything, and then your pump and 2 fans plug into the splitter. And they, like I say, they will work in tandem. Speeds are read off of channel 1, which is the red plug right here. So if you want to monitor your pump speed, you'd probably plug your pump in there. If you want to monitor your fan speeds, you plug one of your fans in there. Either way, they'll all get exactly the same PWM signal. Okay, first step in installing, we're going to get the radiator mounted. I'm going to drop the fans into place first. Now you can run them as a push, as an intake, or as a pull. Personally, I'm not a big advocate of blowing hot air into your case, so I'm going to set them up as a pull and exhaust. We did find that running push or pull with the H220 and H240-X had very, very little difference in performance. We actually couldn't even measure it. So get your fans into place. Now, of course, if you're going to be mounting it in a case that does not allow for the fans to be on top, you're going to want to go underneath. But either way, first step, get the fans into place. Next, we will put the radiator into place underneath it. Screw will go obviously through the fan, into the radiator. And we'll get that tightened up. And naturally you want to use all 8 screws and get everything into place. Easiest thing to do. Start at 2 corners. Because once you've got 2 corners in place, the radiator will stay and you can work a lot more freely. Don't want to over tighten, you just want them snug. And you're good to go and move on. Next we're going to put the back plate on the back of the motherboard. And as you can see, it's got 4 foam pads here, which you can actually, they are adhesive, so you can actually peel that off and stick it. I'm not a big fan of sticking things to my motherboard, so I'm not going to do that. And you'll notice it's notched on one side, which corresponds to these 2 screws. So just make sure you've got it aligned correctly. And this backplate actually holds pretty tight, so you shouldn't really need to use the adhesive, except in extreme circumstances. That's it for putting the backplate into place. Okay, with the backplate in place, you can actually see the threaded parts coming through the motherboard. And you can also see I've already gone ahead and applied the thermal interface material, just small dots, same as you would any other cooler. Next, take the block, make sure you peel off the plastic. Seems like, stating the obvious, but I've actually seen quite a few people mount it without taking off plastic, then saying, why are my temps a problem. And all we're going to do, see you've got the 4 screws already on the block, and they do actually slide from side to side. You want to get them, put in the middle, and that will just about line them up perfectly. Make your life a little easier. Get it into place. Get your first started. Because I'm not using the adhesive on the back, so it is a little bit more tricky. And we'll get the first screw started here. And just want to start them and work in a cross pattern. Don't tighten all the way. Like I say, initially, just get them started, and you can then go around and tighten up in a cross pattern until you feel the actual stop on the screw. You will tighten a bit, and like I say, you will feel a distinct stop. Don't try to over tighten past that point. It stops, just stop screwing. And like I say, use your X pattern to tighten. That'll get you a nice even spread of the thermal interface material until you finally got the stop on all 4. Now with everything in place, we can start wiring up. You do have a 3-pin right off of the CPU block. That is for the LED for the CPU block. So that's got to go to something that's got constant 12 volt. If you've got 2 CPU headers on the board, perfect place to put it on the secondary CPU header. PWM headers have a constant 12 volts, so not a problem there. Or if you're going to connect it to one of your fan headers, make sure you go into BIOS and you turn off any fan control so it's got a constant 12 volts. Now we also have 4-pin and a SATA off of the pump, and we're going to run them around the back, and we're going to take a look at how they get wired up. Okay, finishing up the wiring, we're going to use the PWM splitter like we said. I'm going to take off the first 3 caps. As I say, it's port 1 that actually reports speed right here, and I actually want to monitor fan speed, so I'm going to plug a fan into port 1 as well as port 2. And finally, the 4-pin off of the pump, I'm going to plug into port 3. Like I say, if you want to monitor pump speeds rather than fan speeds, simply plug the pump into port 1 rather than the fan. Now, with that done, all that's left to do, on the PWM splitter, you've got 4-pin off of there, which will go into your CPU header, so we'll run that right back out. In the main chamber, plug that into CPU fan header, and the 2 SATAs from the PWM splitter and the pump will get plugged directly into SATA power. With the install completed, I mean, the H240X looks very, very nice inside the case. You know, it's got really, much more of what it is, which is, a small loop of discrete components than it does, a CLC type look. You've got the Apogee XL block, which is really a great looking block, especially illuminates really nicely. One with the blue, actually, instead of the white here, just because it shows up a little bit better on camera. You've got the really nice 3/8, 5/8 tubing, which, one of the nice things about this, with it being open loop, is you can actually cut it to size. If you wanted to and you didn't want this big loop here, it's really not a big issue, just giving it a cut and, making it, much smaller loop and really getting it, tailored to your case. The light up reservoir, as we said, very nice looking. You get an instant reading on your water level, which it comes filled like to the max line, so you really don't see any water in there. A lot of people do say, oh, well, I don't hear my pump and I don't see any bubbles in the reservoir. That's actually a good thing. Obviously, not hearing the pump is a great thing because it is, just about dead silent. And it's always quieter than the fans, so you never hear the pump over the fans. The other thing being, like I say, people say they don't see bubbles in the reservoir. You shouldn't. It's well bled, right out of the box. When we first started it up, we got a couple bubbles go through, bled right out, no problem whatsoever. Haven't seen a bubble since, and it looks very, very good in the case. So if you do get, you see it coming down towards the min, like I say, you pop the radiator out, just throw a little distilled water in there and you're good to go. So looks good in the case. Now let's see how it tests out as far as performance. Okay, so let's get a look at the performance here. First off, starting off with CPU at stock speeds, it's 4770K. Obviously not a match for any of these coolers. The one thing we do see here, the H240X maxes out at 46 dB, a tick louder than the H220X, which is to be expected. Obviously louder than the NHD15, but significantly quieter than the CLCs. Now let's actually get something going here and bump up the CPU to 4.4 gigahertz, 1.206 volts. And what we see here, the H240X starts taking a pretty commanding lead here. Just a tick better than the H220X, but, really head and shoulders above the rest in the test. And again, 46 dB, so it's one of the quieter coolers in the test as well. Now, if we quiet things down and, keep everything below 40 dB, that's going to bring the H240X down to 1350 RPM on the fans, and it'll come in at 39 dB. Again, stock temperature is not going to bother it, whatsoever. We see really no change in any of the coolers when we quiet them down. But now overclocking, bringing it back up to 4.4 gigahertz, and still keeping things below 40 dB, we see a marked difference here. The H240X, once again, barely nudges up, just a couple of degrees on the temperature, falls below the H220X, or I should say the temperature is just below the that of the H220X and significantly better than everything else, that we're testing with here today. And, these are the top coolers in their respective classes, and, nothing's really coming close to the X series, either the 220 or the 240, and the 240 is really doing a job here. Now, we ran one other test, and this is probably going to be one of the craziest graphs we've ever done. We actually ran the Swiftech H240X at its absolute minimum, 850 RPM on the fans, 1350 on the pump. And we ran it against everything else maxed out. That would mean, the maximum fans and pumps on all the other units. And, you take a look at this graph, and the H240X idling, basically outperforms everything on here that isn't made by Swiftech. I mean, you look at it, comes in, exactly the same as an X61, only it's 23 dB quieter, 21 dB quieter than the Water 3.0 Ultimate, which is actually a 360 millimeter CLC. Obviously, the 220X does, quite a bit better, but, you're also looking at another 10 dB there. But the H220X also is, you bring down the noise, doesn't get too bad. What does happen here, but now you look at it against something like the H100i maxed out, you're looking at 35 dB louder, and it's still 4 degrees hotter on the CPU. The Noctua NHD15, does a nice job matching it as well. Comes in 33 dB, exactly the same as far as quiet, and is only 1 degree off. So, as far as noise performance goes, the Noctua NHD15 is going to come the closest here to it. But, I mean, what the H240X is able to do, at idle is absolutely astounding. And that's thanks to that larger radiator, with such great passive cooling, properties. I can't say enough about, the difference in the brass copper radiator over an aluminum radiator, exactly how much it benefits the cooler on the whole, especially at lower speeds. Well, I suppose in a word, that was fun. I mean, there's really no reason to go on anymore about the performance of the H240X. It was kind of expected after we saw the H220X. They really have formed their own performance segment. Really out of the box, nothing else compares to them. Not even close. Now, one of the, a couple of things, you notice, really great noise to performance on the H240X. It was a little bit louder than the H220X, just a tick, not too bad. But what was really impressive was when we set the fans down to idle 850 RPM with the pump running right around 1350 RPM, and it still outperformed every other cooler in the test, regardless of fan speed. And came in at only 33 dB. You just can't get more outstanding noise to performance than that. Really just a phenomenal showing from the H240X. Now, of course, I mean, the H240X, $149 represents an absolutely outstanding value. If you try and put a loop together like this, you're going to be spending around $220, $230 at a bare minimum with, similar components. So, between the performance and the value, ease of installation, and flexibility, obviously, the H240X is taking home a High-Tech Legion Editor's Choice Award. Now, one thing I do want to talk about, a lot of people are going to be saying, okay, well, the H220X and the H240X, performance on them is so similar. Well, yeah, it is. So, why is there a 240X? Simple. You do get that little tick better performance. So with the enthusiast overclocker, yeah, you are going to be able to get a little bit more, from the H240X and the H220X. But the real reason is the expandability. With an H220X, yeah, you can do a CPU and GPU, but it's not ideal on a 240 millimeter radiator. On a 280, you can much more comfortably do a CPU and GPU with just a single radiator. A lot of people discount exactly how big a 280 millimeter radiator is. It's only about 12% smaller than a 360 millimeter radiator, and full 36% larger than a 240 millimeter radiator. It's actually closer to a 360 than it is a 240. So, you do have that situation where now you're going to be able to slap a GPU on here and it's going to be very comfortable. You're not going to be running higher temps, you're not going to be struggling. You can do that if you so desire as you're building up your loop. You can always add a second radiator later, but you're going to be able to do it very comfortably. I mean, especially if you're not overclocking the GPU, it's going to run really, really well. And that's a big reason for the 240 versus over the 220. But like I say, all in all, Swiftech has formed their own market segment here. What they're giving you is, it is an AiO as an all-in-one. It's pre-filled, ready to go, out of the box, 3-year warranty. They guarantee, for 3 years, it's going to run perfectly. And if your water level does go down during that 3 year or after, you just top it off, you're good to go, and it's going to keep going. All discrete parts, these are the same parts, like I say, you're going to buy if you're buying individual components. It's not, some also ran parts that Swiftech's thrown together. These are all, top quality components put into a small loop, pre-assembled, ready to go out of the box for you, and you can add to it if you want to. So once again, the H240X has taken home another Editor's Choice Award for Swiftech, and the H220X 240X is probably going to wind up being the product of the year this year. I haven't seen a single product, or product line so far ahead of everything else in a segment, in a long, long time. It happens once in a while in GPUs, but I haven't seen anything come out in cooling like this that just, far and away is, like I say, its own segment at this point. Nothing comes close. Really absolutely fabulous job by Swiftech, and kudos to them once again on the H240X.